what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to bring it into perspective based on what we have as a company, as ONPASSIVE, what Ash is trying to do for us, right? For any software that is developed, right, there's some steps, some stages that they go through. And once those stages are gone through, then the company has to decide one of two ways to develop that software. And we're going to talk about those options once I'm done telling you what the stages are, right? So first of all, there is the idea, the ideology, the great innovative idea, right? Which of course our CEO has plenty of, right? He has all these great ideas. He thinks about them. And I'm pretty sure he's not a one-man gang. He calls a few other smart people, right? And they're gonna brainstorm, they're gonna do what we call planning. So that is the planning phase, right? And that planning phase usually includes like higher level management, right? And they're gonna sit down and say, okay, here is this idea. We want to solve this problem. Remember, we are solving a problem. For everything that we do, we are solving a problem. So here's this problem we're trying to solve. What are the requirements? Okay. So they're gonna say, what do we need? Okay, requirements analysis. And then they're gonna come up with a scope. And there's something called the product scope. So in case, for example, we have many products, right? And I'm gonna really focus on O Connect, for example, because I love O Connect. We're on Zoom right now. Zoom O Connect is gonna take over Zoom. Okay. So, and this happens with all the products. When I'm talking about O Connect, for example, the same thing is going to happen with all those different products. Okay, so they're going to come up with a product scope. What kind of things do we expect to see, right? And also once they get the product scope, they're going to have a project scope, right? So there's a project scope. The product scope is it's a subset of the project scope. Now the project is the whole thing, right? So once they're done with all that, they come out with the requirements and all that stuff, come out with the scope. And this can take months, by the way. It does take some time. It's not something you come and sit for one day and it is done. No, it takes time. And then there is what we call a design phase. Okay? What do we mean by design? We have to describe, we have to develop an architecture, we have to say how is it going to look like, okay? What kind of hardware do we need? All those different things that we need to make sure that we can implement that scope that we just decided on. Okay? So again, this is another phase that can take months. Right? Now, once we have those designers, we have everything, we have built everything, the engineers and the upper level management, and they say, hey, this is how we're gonna design it, everything looks good. What do we do next? There's something called implementation. That's the next phase. We're going to implement. That means what? That means we're going to write the codes, right? In software development, there's something else. We call it codes. It's just programmers using the language that software understands. Okay? And there are different types of language they can decide to use. Different type of programming language, I mean, say. So they're going to decide to start writing the codes, and that is the tedious work. For those of you who have been following my webinars, and I said the code writing millions upon millions of lines of coding does take a lot of time, believe me, my friends. Okay? And then once it is done, the codes are written and everything is done, looking good, we're going to now go into what we call testing. Right? There are different types of testing, right? There's unit testing, right? There's regression testing, different types of testing. We don't need to go into those details, but then there's also something called user acceptance testing, UAT, or beta. If you go to your back office now, you're gonna see those products say beta, right? Or mail, or chat, all these products. That's the beta or network. That means we are in that testing phase. Okay? Once we are done with the testing phase, and we say, hey, everything looks good, okay, and we can participate for those of you who are interested. That's why they're in your back office. And then you can give input oh, wait a minute, I tested this, and hey, don't you think it would be better if we have it this way? I've had some founders written to me or call me up and say, hey, I tested old stuff, and here's what I did with AGP, because one of them uses AGP, and he's trying to tell me or compare things with AGP and say, hey, why can't we do it this way or do it that way? And I said, well, great. That's why they are there, right? Let's just test them if we can and make suggestions. Now, once that testing is complete and done, we are going to get into deployment, right? So we're not there just yet, and we are planning to be there very, very soon. And some of you are saying November is a great month. I think it's going to be a great month, okay? Because we are going to start deploying some of these products, okay? And once we start deploying, guess what's going to happen? We're going to start commercializing, okay? That means we're going to start getting some apples. The apples are going to start dropping. And some of us have been waiting for a very long time. As what you guys think, personally, I don't think we've been waiting that long. You want to know why? Usually. Now, there's one last step before maintenance, okay, in this software development life cycle. But before we get to maintenance, I just want to say, usually, these things take time, averagely about a year. And when we say about 1 year, we are talking about one product. Averagely about a year for one product. So can you guys believe that in just over 3.5 years, because it is 3.5 years, I've heard people say 4 years. No. The first concept was developed 4 years ago. When we started July 2018, Jeffrey Morgan attest to that. It was just to have some traffic, some software that's going to provide traffic, right? So then, 2019, sometime after April of 2019, that is when this whole thing came up. Okay, we're going to have our own, everything unique, developed from scratch. So imagine, summer of 2019, that is when it all started. And when you factor that in, it's just over 3 years, 3.5 years. So it's not that long. And we've come up already with 10 products by the end of this week at our market value. And I should say, 1 or 2 sprints is going to be above market value. And I'm going to explain to you in a little bit what a sprint is. Once we come into what form do you choose, right? So that next phase I was saying is maintenance. Once we get these things or these products out to the market, there is going to be maintenance. There is always going to be improvements, bugs, software releases. Those of you that use, for example, iPhones, every now and then you want to log in, they'll tell you, oh, there's a little software version for you to upgrade, right? That's what that is all about, maintenance. It's always going to be there. And we're going to have that too, right? Transparent to most of us as founders, it's just going to happen because people are working in the background, right? So there's that maintenance. And in this software development life cycle, some people,
Charles, you muted yourself.
okay, sorry about that. I don't know how far I was, but in this software development life cycle, there's maintenance, okay, and then there is something called retirement, right? Some people add that. That is where you retire that software if it's archaic, if it's outdated, obsolete, right? So some people add that to the process life cycle, but it's not necessary. But it's maintenance. Now, you have all these different stages. You are faced with what method do we use? There's something called waterfall, right? That's the initial original method that companies use. And I can assure you, we are not using that because we are an advanced company, we're a developed company, and we are evolving. So we use something called agile methodology. What is that? What's the difference? Okay. In the waterfall, what used to happen is these engineers or these owners and product owners are going to go through all these spaces that I just mentioned, and then they're going to start building the product, right? So guess what? What if the planning is complete, and next phase is design. The engineers start designing, and then they realize, wait a minute, that planning was not quite the way it was. Well, guess what? We're gonna start all over. See, the owners of the project, they're gonna wait until that 1 year, until everything is finished, and then we develop. Let's take O Connect, for example. Had it been ONPASSIVE was using that waterfall system, what would have happened is they would make all that, go through all those phases, design O Connect, and then after a year or so, Ash and his team are going to sit and say, wait a minute, something is missing. This is not exactly what we wanted. So there's a big disadvantage. And that is why most companies these days tend to use Agile. Okay? And now I'm going to explain to you why, or what the difference is. In the Agile methodology, which I believe we are using, is very evident, because Ash has mentioned sprints a few times. Okay? 1 or 2 sprints left, and so on. Okay? What happens is, after everything is done, okay, you go to the planning phase, the first phase, they do the planning, okay, everybody comes in together, they do the planning, they work on it, the designers, the engineers, the programmers, the testers, everybody is involved, including the product owner. In this our case, Ash Mofara is the chief product owner, okay, the chief. There might be others that he works with. They're gonna sit down, plan it together, okay? And then they're gonna move to the next phase, the design phase. They're gonna design, plan it together, test it. Everybody's involved. The testers are involved. Whoever is writing the code is involved. Everybody's involved. Okay. Once that is done, and usually at the end of those sprints, as we call them, a sprint can be anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks, or 1 to 3 weeks typically. Sometimes you can get 4 weeks, depending on the project, on the product. In our case, I think we might be doing a 2-week sprint. But I won't be surprised if it's a 1-week sprint, right? Because Ash is always doing things so that we can move faster. As you can see, in just 3.5 years, we have products that are ready. Thanks also to the fact that we're using renewable technology, right? So that is really, really helping to accelerate the process, okay? So we are really, really ahead of schedule, my friends. Now, you have each and every phase, and every phase or every sprint is going to end up with a viable product, a product that can be released. That little piece can be released, okay, and tested. So, and we're going to change. If it doesn't make sense, we're going to adapt. So we have this continuous involvement. If you listen to Ash many times, O Connect has been done and redone, done and redone. So a sprint is finished, they will test them, doesn't make sense, doesn't meet exactly what you want, or maybe it does meet what he wants, but it can be improved upon. They're gonna change it again, they're gonna do it again until we get it right, right? We get it perfect, exactly where we want it to be. Okay, so that's what our sprint. I think our sprint is about 2 weeks. Not sure, because here I'm just giving you an idea how it works in the industry, and for a very good reason. They're not going to tell us, because they're not going to tell us exactly how and what they're doing. Okay, but we're going to have an idea what is happening behind the scenes. This is exactly what's happening. We're in that stage now where we are very, very close to deployment, and start getting those apples when it's deployed, and then maintenance will kick in. So guys, we just ought to be very patient. We'll be patient enough. We're almost there, and very, very grateful to Mr. Ash Mofara. And let's just give you a quick example of O Connect as how those things can happen, that iteration, how it is so important. Now remember, guys, Ash said by October 15, O Connect should be above market value, right? Because they're adding 2 new phases. So imagine, O Connect has all these different features, right? Distraction, detection. So they can have a sprint just to add distraction detection. Now, after that sprint, they're going to test it. Does it work well? We need to do anything. So after another sprint, they're going to add like the new stuff that he's talking about. Okay, playback. Okay, they're going to test it, add it, look at it, say, hey, is it working? So every little feature that they add can be a whole sprint. Meaning, this sprint is something we can take that product and start using without that feature, right? So that's the key, and that is what is happening, right? So, guys, let's all put our hands together for our great engineering team, our CEO, of what they're doing, and let's just get ready to have a better shape of our lives. Thank you.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If your mind is not blown away from listening to